This is me, Daniel, eating sandwich, which contains carbohydrates from bread, fats from cheese, and proteins from egg.
Mouth is the beginning of the digestive tract. Chewing breaks the food into pieces that are easily digested. In back of the mouth, the tongue is anchored into bone. Tongue is vital for chewing and swallowing food. The molars are the largest of the teeth. The purpose of the teeth is to chew, crush, and grind food.
Salivary glands are in the head and the neck. It produces saliva, which keeps the mouth and the other parts of the digestive system moist. Saliva contains the enzyme amylase that breaks down complex carbohydrates, starch such as breads, rice, and potatoes. Salivary amylase speeds the reaction in which starch is digested to many molecules of maltose, a disaccharide. Maltose cannot be absorbed by the intestine. Additional digestive action in the small intestine converts the maltose to glucose, a monosaccharide. Human saliva is comprised of 99.5% water plus electrolytes, mucus, white blood cells, epithelial cells, enzymes, antimicrobial agents. The components in saliva helps keep the pH in your mouth between 6.5 and 7 so that the enzyme salivary amylase can start to break down carbohydrates. The pharynx is below both the mouth and the nose and just above the larynx and the esophagus. It has a double function, key part both for the digestive system and the respiratory system. For respiratory system, pharynx allows the air that has been inhaled by the nose all the way down to the lungs through the larynx and the windpipe. For digestive system, pharynx helps ingested food to go into the esophagus. Epiglottis is a leaf-shaped flap of cartilage located behind the tongue at the top of the larynx, also known as voice box. Its function is to seal off the windpipe during eating so that food is not accidentally inhaled. Esophagus is a tube that connects the throat, pharynx, and the stomach. Esophagus is made up of muscle that contracts to move food to the stomach. The process is called peristalsis, which is a series of wave-like muscle contractions that move food to different processing stations in the digestive tract. Cardiac sphincter is a valve located at the lower end of the esophagus, which prevents backflow of stomach contents into the esophagus. It opens and allows the food to enter the stomach. Once the food passes through the esophagus, the sphincter closes so that the food does not flow back out of the stomach. Stomach receives food from the esophagus, starts the digestion of proteins, and moves food into the small intestine. Stomach has a thick wall with folds that allow it to expand and fill with food. Food in the stomach is mixed with gastric juice produced by the stomach to form a thick acidic liquid called chyme. The enzymes that help digest food in stomach works best at pH around 2. Stomach has gastric glands which secrete gastric juice containing pepsinogen. Pepsinogen is converted to enzyme pepsines when exposed to HCl. Pepsine acts on proteins, which are polymers of amino acids, to produce peptides. Peptides from the stomach are usually too large to be absorbed. Later in the small intestine, they are broken down to amino acids, the monomers of a protein molecule. HCl released in our stomach when we eat a meal breaks down foods and causes the release of enzymes that further help digestion. HCl also protects your body from illness by killing pathogens commonly found in foods. Mucus helps protect the stomach lining from the action of gastric juice. Phyloric sphincter is located between the phylaris of the stomach and the duodenum of the small intestine. The phyloric sphincter serves as a gateway between the stomach and the small intestine. The lower parts of the stomach contract in waves called peristalsis that help mechanically break down food and mix it with digestive juice. With each wave, the phyloric sphincter opens and allows a little bit of chyme to pass into the duodenum. It remains closed during eating and while the stomach mixes food with gastric juice. Duodenum is the first and the shortest segment of the small intestine. Many chemical secretion from the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder mix with the chyme in duodenum to facilitate chemical digestion. Ducts from the liver and the pancreas join to form one common bile duct that enters the duodenum. The small intestine receives bile from the liver and pancreatic juice from the pancreas by the one common duct. The pancreatic juice has basic pH because it contains sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes HCl and chyme, producing slightly basic pH that is optimum for pancreatic enzymes, raising it to an alkaline pH of 7.1 to 8.2. Pancreatic juice includes pancreatic amylase, which digests starch to maltose, and trypsin, which digests protein to peptides. Lipase from the pancreatic juice digests fat molecules into fat droplets after they have been emulsified by bile salts. Emulsification is the breakdown of large fat globules into small droplets in the intestine to increase their surface area. Fats are triglycerides, which means that each one is composed of glycerol, and 3 fatty acids. The end product of lipase digestion, glycerol and fatty acid molecules are small enough to cross the cells of the intestinal villi, where absorption takes place. Glycerol and fatty acid enters the cell of the villi, and within these cells they are rejoined and packaged as lipoprotein droplets before entering the lacteals, which absorbs fatty acid. And pancreatic juice also releases nucleases, which break or digest nucleic acids like DNA and RNA into nucleotides, which are the building blocks of the nucleic acids. When these nucleotides reach the ileum, the last section of the small intestine, they are further digested into sugar, bases, and phosphate. Intestinal juice, peptidase, and maltase enzymes secreted by the surface cells of the small intestinal villi complete the digestion of protein to amino acids and starch to glucose. Works best at pH around 7.5. These small molecules can then be absorbed by the cells of the villi. Peptidase, which results from the first step in protein digestion, are digested to amino acids by peptidase. Amino acid is then absorbed by blood capillary, which has a function of absorbing glucose and amino acids. Maltose, a disaccharide that results from the first step in starch digestion, is digested to glucose by maltose. Glucose is then absorbed by blood capillary. Liver lies mainly in the upper right section of the abdominal cavity under the diaphragm. It contains 100,000 lobules, which are the structural and functional units of the liver. It has several functions. It detoxifies blood by removing or metabolizing poisonous substances. It stores iron and vitamins A, D, E, K, and B12. It makes plasma proteins from amino acids such as albumins and fibrinogen. It stores glucose and glycerin after a meal and maintains the glucose concentration of blood between eating periods by breaking down glycogen to glucose. Liver produces urea after breaking down amino acids. It removes bilirubin, which is a breakdown product of hemoglobin, from the blood and excretes it in bile, a liver product. It helps regulate blood cholesterol level, converting some to bile salts. It produces bile, which is then stored in the gallbladder. Also, when you have more sugar in your body than it needs, insulin from pancreas helps to store the sugar in your liver and releases when your blood sugar level is low, maintaining blood sugar levels. Gallbladder is a pear-shaped and hollow organ located underneath the liver. The main function is to store bile, and water is absorbed by the gallbladder so that bile becomes a thick mucus-like material. Once food enters the small intestine, a hormone called cholecystoskinin is released, signaling the gallbladder to release bile into the small intestine through the common bile duct, where it breaks up fats. Pancreas is deep in the abdominal cavity and rests on the posterior abdominal wall. It is elongated / kind of flattened organ. It contains both endocrine / exocrine function. Exocrine function is pancreatic cells producing pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice holds both sodium carbonate to help neutralize stomach acid and digestive enzymes for all types of food. Endocrine function. As an endocrine gland, pancreas secretes insulin / glucagon. These are hormones that help keep blood glucose levels normal. Pancreatic isolates are clusters of 3 types of endocrine cells: alpha cells, which produce glucagon; beta cells, which produce insulin; and delta cell, which produces somatostatin. Glucagon is a hormone secreted by pancreas, usually when blood glucose level is low, and it stimulates liver to break down glucogen to glucose. Insulin / glucagon are important in regulating blood glucose level. Insulin is secreted from pancreas when the blood glucose level is high, usually after eating. Insulin stimulates the uptake of glucose by cells, especially liver cells, muscle cells, and endopoietic tissue cells. Glucose is then stored as glucogen in liver / muscle cells. Breakdown of glucose supplies energy for protein metabolism in muscle cells and in fat cells. It supplies glycerol for the formation of fat. Insulin lowers blood glucose level. Somatostatin is growth hormone inhibiting hormone produced by pancreas and cells in stomach / small intestine. It inhibits release of growth hormones / suppresses release of various hormones produced by digestive system such as insulin and glucagon. It produces digestive enzymes that are sent to the small intestine by means of the pancreatic duct. Small intestine. The walls of the small intestine contains finger-like projection called villi. Singular villus. A villus has an outer layer of columnar epithelial cells, and each of these cells has thousands of microscopic extensions called microvilli. Within the villus, lacteal absorb fatty acid and glycerol, digested from fats, and blood capillary absorbs sugars and amino acids. Small intestine has a small diameter, but it is around 6 meter, whereas the large intestine is 1.5 meter. First 25 centimeter is the duodenum, the middle part is the jejunum, and the remainder is the small intestine is specialized for chemical and physical digestion and absorption by being very long, having villi and microvilli that increase the surface area, using muscular contraction to move and mix food, and receiving and housing digestive enzymes and bile that helps the breakdown of food. Appendix. Projection in the cesium that may play a role in fighting infection, prone to inflammation, a condition called appendicitis. If it becomes inflamed, it should be removed before it bursts, which could cause peritonitis, an inflammation of the lining of the abdominal cavity, which can lead to death. Large intestine, or colon. It includes cesium, colon rectum, and anal canal. It's larger in diameter than the small intestine, 6.5 centimeter compared to 2.5, but it is shorter in length. It absorbs water, salts, and some vitamins and stores indigestible material until it is disposed of as feces. The cesium lies below the junction with the small intestine is a small pouch that forms the first part of the large intestine. The colon includes the ascending colon, which goes up the right side of the body to the level of the liver. The transverse colon crosses the abdominal cavity just below the liver and the stomach. The descending colon passes the left side of the body, and the sigmoid colon enters the rectum. Anaerobic bacteria in the colon, which is also called the large intestine, makes up 90% of all the bacteria in the colon. They produce short-chain fatty acid from carbohydrate. These short-chain fatty acids are essential for metabolic as well as functional welfare of the colonic mucosa. Rectum. The last 20 centimeter of the large intestine is the rectum. The rectum opens at the anus where defecation occurs. Feces are forced into the rectum by peristalsis, and a defecation reflex occurs. Anus. The stretching of the rectal wall initiates nerve impulses to the spinal cord, causing the rectal muscles to contract and the anal sphincters to relax, resulting in defecation.